final. Many Royal Lopez battles from both these players. Are you expecting a similar storyline in the openings or some switch-ups?
I think there'll be some subtle changes, but I, as David says, I think they're going to treat each other with a lot of respect. Magnus is known to experiment sometimes, 1a6. Okay, we have a bit of a different move here. The knight hops out, maybe suggesting a Reti opening or something similar. And this is already a little unusual from Magnus.
Yeah, a really flexible choice here from Magnus, depending on how Nakamura reacts, which pawn black pushes here. Magnus has a variety of different setups to choose from, and okay, copycat chess, he just develops his knight as well. And Magnus here, he hints that he might go for the English opening, but yeah, we could see this transpose into Queen's Gambits, we could see it transpose into Queen's Indians, all sorts of different positions possible here. Okay, he pushes a pawn, getting ready to fianchetto black's light squared bishop. That bishop is going to land on b7 on a nice long diagonal. And yeah, it feels like they're just freestyling at this point. They're just, of course, a well-known position, but they're just going through those mind games that we alluded to. They're just trying to kind of get each other out of book as early as possible.
Yeah, b6, the move that Hikaru just played, is a little bit of an unusual move. I mean, Magnus now deciding what kind of setup he wants to play. He can either play in the centre or maybe he can fianchetto on the king side as well. And I mean, one of Magnus's real strengths and probably what he's got as an advantage over everyone else in the world is just his knowledge of various setups. I mean, these guys, they pretty much know everything, but Magnus knows everything and a little bit more. You know, you mentioned he had that Soviet chess book. He's so well read and researched. So and here he goes. He's just deciding to fianchetto his bishop there. And I always think generally the fianchetto bishop on the king side, defended by the king, is stronger than the one on the queen side because it's undefended. So to my eyes, this seems very sensible, but normal position.
A normal position, a cagey start from these two players, just feeling the opening rhythm out right now. We did see Hikaru in the Speed Chess Championship also employ this system with the black pieces. This is going to be a tense fight, but the other fights are on as well, as Anish Giri and Jan Nepomniachtchi are ready to make their first moves, and we will get an update on that. But in this one, very often we don't see the Queen's Indian as the choice by some of these top players. A very solid line. Does this surprise you, David, to see Hikaru employ the Queen's Indian time and time again?
Some surprise value, but as you said, that key word, Tanya, solid. And I think with black in a first game, it's best of 4 here. I think Hikaru would be happy with a solid start, a nice draw, take the white pieces next and then start to push. That tends to be good classical chess wisdom. Early days, of course, but yeah, it goes through fashion stages, this opening, and Hikaru, he's had some success with it, so here we go.
He's doing the Beth Harmon a bit there, isn't he, old Hikaru? And it's always fascinating to see the body language of the different players. And he's either doing the Beth Harmon or he's crying. And Magnus is just enjoying a kebab or something. You know, he's just tucking into his probably his breakfast.
White, Magnus still chomping on his food, but also the center. He's managed to gain control over the center, has some more space. And it started with a solid Queen's Indian, but has transformed into a pretty dynamic pawn structure where black has got a majority on the queen side, but white more space in the center and a potential kingside attack.
Yeah, this pawn structure that you're kind of referencing here, Tanya, it more often arises from the Grunfeld defense or from the semi-Tarrasch defense. But yeah, here it looks like both sides have reason to be happy. Black long-term doing very well, as you mentioned, that queenside pawn majority. Dynamically, white in the current position should be pretty optimistic because of that beautiful pawn center. And this is still a relatively well-known position. So I'm slightly surprised that both sides have been burning a bit of time up to this moment. But yeah, I think the game will be decided on who can kind of manipulate this position best, who can get their pieces active quicker. I'm expecting Magnus now to continue development. White's dark square bishop needs to choose a square. And later on, it's about whether white can step forward in the center. If he can successfully, he has a big advantage. If he can't, then black should be quite content.
Yeah, we've seen this kind of structure before quite a lot, as you mentioned, and I think you summed it up great there, David. Black's chances generally tend to get better as the game goes on, right into the ending, because he can get the outside pass pawn, and Magnus just developing his last piece there. I always like having white in these positions, though. I mean, you've got a lot of pieces on the board. You've got it's white who kind of decides the pace of the game, because white has both of these pawns that he can push at the right moment. You don't have to do it straight away. You can improve your pieces first, but it's nice to kind of be in charge, I feel, sometimes. While black just has to wait for one of those pushes and try to improve his pieces, take over the open C file.
I agree with you, Simon. And I think for white, it's all about trying to get that play on the king side. The bishop from b2 can often become a sniper once you get a central pawn moving. The move d5 always in the air to open up that diagonal, start targeting black's king on the queen side. Meanwhile, for Hikaru, the plans are often advancing the queenside pawns, also bringing the rook to the open C line, and the knight jumps from a5 to c4, targeting that dark squared bishop. But the big question in my mind, David, is right now, and you know Magnus well, so I'm going to ask you, has Magnus just woken up? What's going on here?
It is past 6 p.m. in Norway, 6 o'clock in the evening. But I do know that Magnus likes to wake up late, depending on the day, depending on what his responsibilities are. Magnus is, of course, well known. He's on record saying he wakes up, he times his kind of sleep patterns according to when he needs to peak in the day, and he'll need to peak within these next few hours. So hopefully he's been awake for a while by now. But yeah, certainly not playing so quickly at the moment, not looking his freshest, sharpest. We'll see when the game really livens up whether he's ready to strike.
I think his priorities at the moment seem to be his food rather than the chess, you know. So he's getting his energy in to fuel himself there. And we see his last move, very logical move, bringing the rook to the open file. That's where the rooks belong. And here, Hikaru trying to make some exchanges. And as we mentioned before, exchanges generally help Hikaru's position. You take the sting out of white's pawns. White really wants to use those pawns to create an attack, I'd say, against black's king there. So good, solid moves from both players so far.
All right, this one is a strategic battle right now, but as soon as one of those central pawns start moving, it can become a very spicy on the king side. We will keep an eye out on this one.
He's the one creating the threats. Suddenly, body language expert Simon Williams, we need a reading.
Thank you, David. So looking at the body language of the two players, I can barely see Magnus because it's a bit dark in his room, but I mean, he looks pretty chilled out. He's probably digesting his food. And Hikaru, he's got a very unique thinking pose, hasn't he? I mean, he always, it is the Beth Harmon thing where to recall his information, he's always like looking around the room and just trying to calculate away from the board. It's interesting as well. I mean, I was thinking this the other day, the way chess has developed. Hikaru has kind of coined the king of online chess. And there's a big difference now between playing online and playing over the board. I mean, playing online, you kind of recall everything in 2D. So you know, and playing over a real board, you recall everything in a 3D way. And I think some people just, you know, memorize and can get to that information in an easier way if it's 2D or 3D. He's definitely a 2D guy, and it's weird how the brain thinks when you're trying to calculate these lines. But white must be doing well here. I mean, this move, it attacks the queen. Magnus can simply go pawn takes pawn, which he has done, and that pawn is very dangerous. And as you say, look at white's bishop. So Hikaru playing very bravely here. And just aiming to get some compensation by exchanging the queens. Wow, we have loads of moves. I mean, you know, what's going on? You know, it's about 10 moves happened there. So that was remarkable how quickly they played. I mean, it's not bullet chess anymore, guys. Just chill. Just chill a little bit.
It's not the SCC, but David, you need to do an action replay because so much happened and just so quickly.
Yeah, so quickly. And we saw, if we backtrack to this moment, we jumped in here. The white knight has just leapt into the center, attacking black's queen. Hikaru paused. Like Simon said, he was looking around the room. He spent 2 or 3 minutes. And then suddenly we saw the flurry of moves, both players calculating. And it's instructive for everyone at home. Magnus calculating on his opponent's time. That's something to bear in mind. You want to save time in any speed game. Queen to a4, a very forcing move, attacking a pawn. White recaptures, again, forcing type of move, checks, captures and threats. Queen takes pawn, another capture. The queen slides across to defend her bishop. Watch out, there's some nasty checkmating ideas. If the white knight jumps out the way, the white queen can take on g7. So black blocks this diagonal, but then the black queen is almost trapped. Only one safe square, forcing a queen trade, and white regains the pawn that was captured on the A file earlier. So after black's knight retreats, this is the kind of remnants of that kind of melee that we found ourselves in, and white still has this really strong passed pawn, only 3 squares away from promotion. The question is it a strength or a weakness? Black, watch out for this pawn long term, has the outside runner further away from the kings, so if all the pieces disappear, then black may be for choice. It's really still hanging in the balance, but the lack of queens means it's now more about really concrete play. Magnus playing f4 here, defending his knight. And yeah, I think I would still choose white, but I think maybe some of the advantage is gone. I think Hikaru, really practical decision to trade off those queens.
Yeah, maybe it just depends how dangerous white's pawn is in the centre of the board, and at some point white's just going to try to jam that forwards, right? And if Hikaru can neutralise that pawn, then he's going to be absolutely fine. There's nothing else to worry about. But there's going to be many tactical points here because all the bishops are lined up against each other as well. So you've got to keep an eye out for any exchanges or any knight moves, any pawn moves to unleash those bishops. So Hikaru needs to use his time now, and he's having a good think about how to neutralise this position. Maybe moving the rook into the centre makes a lot of sense. Move it in front of the pawn. This would be the first move I think you'd think of, but I don't know, maybe there's some tactics there if that happens, and he's just got to be a little bit careful. If he's a little bit careful, he should be all right here.
Yeah, another thing to calculate, for example, the move I want to play is rook to a8, and before we decide whether to even trade rooks, Magnus has the option of taking this bishop. We see the evaluation bar drop. It doesn't work, but this is the type of thing that Hikaru is calculating. The pawn could now step forward, and there's a nasty skewer on this knight, on this rook. It looks like the pawn is about to promote, but black does have the saving grace of moving this rook out the way with a counter threat. Rook to a2, and this is not maybe an easy move to spot. You're leaving your knight hanging, but tactics in the air. This would work out for black, and I think if he can get the rooks off the board, he should. So I'm expecting rook a8 from Hikaru after a bit of calculation.
Even though the queens are off the board, the game, the position has so much to play for and so many tricks to watch out for in this one because of the d-pawn. And of course, these two fighting it out till the end. When you're playing against Magnus, you have to make sure that you're aware of everything, even if the position is balanced. We did hear from Magnus on Twitter right before his encounter against Hikaru Nakamura. And let's see if we can bring that up. Well, Magnus might not have had a shower before this match or changed his clothes or had his food, but he did tweet that revenge is a dish best not served at all. So he's talking about the SCC final where he won against Hikaru, and he's saying no revenge today for you.
Yeah, I mean, this rivalry, they take it really seriously. They both laugh at the end of it, yeah. But really, I mean, Hikaru was dying inside when he lost that one, as Magnus was when he lost the 1 minute. So they've kind of won one big event each. So this is important to them. You know, they want to show who the boss is of online chess.
Yeah, I think every time they play against each other, they're just able to bring out the best in each other to fight it out. While they have a think in this endgame, while Hikaru tries to neutralize all of Magnus's edge in this one, let's head over to Jan Nepomniachtchi.
Has the bishop pair, and look, suddenly trading off, and he's going for that remaining black pawn on h7.
And that's it. We have a result.
Wow, Hikaru resigned?
Resigned.
Yeah, you can see his body language.